Hello, everybody, and welcome to Expert Influencer Academy, where we help you position, package, promote, and partner so that you can monetize your content across the top 5 social media platforms. I'm your host, Charles Watson, and today we have on the Expert Podcast a very special guest with us. We have the CEO of Your Happy Workplace, Miss Wendy Conrad. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Great, Charles. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thanks for coming on today. You have a very unique story and a very unique business. In fact, I think you're the only one I know that actually does what you do, but it's really important. So thanks for coming on. I'm excited to talk to you about that. And speaking about that, will you tell our audience exactly what you do and why you decided to get into your particular niche?
I would love to. And you say it's a unique story, but I don't think it's as unique as you would think. And
Okay.
We'll get to that in a minute when I tell my story. But I'm Wendy Conrad. I'm a workplace happiness consultant, and I founded Your Happy Workplace. And I work with small businesses to help them discover new ways to motivate their team. And I do that by gathering information from their team and using that data and any extra research I need to do that's industry specific to create custom action plans for them so they can better their work culture, which in turn increases employee engagement, makes them more competitive in the job market, which we'll talk a little bit more about later also, and also improves their customer service, because that's what our businesses are set up to do, is to serve our customers. So how I got into that is interesting. As you know, I have spent the past 20 years working for a dozen small businesses. And in one of those experiences, I overheard a boss of mine tell another coworker that my quality of life didn't effing matter, and that I didn't make the rules, and who do I think I am, and blah, 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 blah. So there were a lot of things that led up to that moment that would blow your minds and the minds of your audience. But unfortunately, experiences like that aren't that uncommon. Every time I tell my story, somebody always comes back at me with a bad boss story. We all have a bad boss story. But this place took toxic to the next level. And it just kind of amplified the questions I kept asking myself at each of those 12 small businesses. And it was, why don't they just get that if they paid a little bit of attention to their work culture, if they paid a little bit of attention to their team, what their team needs to do their job better, what their team needs to grow as a human being, what they need to thrive in the workplace, that's going to spill over into everything that their business was created to do. Like I said, increase customer service. Just think about if your team is unhappy and disengaged, how are they going to interface with customers? But if they're inspired and they're at a place where they know that they're respected and they're valued and they're seen and they're heard and their development is paid attention to, how do you think they're going to interface with those same customers? Night and day.
That is a great, what a great story and what a great industry to be in, because I mean, I don't think you have to go far to find an employee that feels like their company or their boss really doesn't pay attention to their needs, or they feel like they're undervalued. You know, they feel like they're not respected in their workplace. I bet if you get 5 people in the room, 3 out of those 5 people are going to have those similar stories. And it's kind of crazy. You know, I've always thought that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert. I'm not the expert, but like we mentioned earlier when we were chatting, I believe that companies need to realize that their biggest asset in their business is their employees, because it doesn't matter what widgets you sell. It doesn't matter how much money you bring in or how awesome or great your product is. If you don't have the infrastructure, if you don't have the employees to drive and manage and produce in that business, you don't have a business. There's no business. Am I right to assume that? I mean,
Yes, I think it's the one thing that is common to any business that has employees. You know, marketing and servicing your customers and manufacturing, that's all industry specific about different ways to market and what's the best way to do this and what's, you know, what kind of training you should have. All of those things are variables that can depend on your specific business. But work culture, that's where everything starts from. That is not industry specific. Every business owner, manager, HR professional, any kind of leader within your team needs to be paying attention to this. And it just seems like, and then I start to ask myself, well, why is it like that? Why do we have so many bad bosses out there?
That's what I was going to ask you. Why do you think
Well,
that just now this is, you know, coming to light?
Well, I don't think it's just now. Let me tell you my thoughts on this whole thing. So, as I was going through all of these different jobs and different work cultures, I started to do a lot of research. And what I found is that work culture has evolved over time as what people need and want in life has evolved over time. I think now that this is the first time in history where we have 5 different generations in the workforce all at the same time.
What?
And so, yes, so you not only, there's no cookie cutter way to motivate a team. Maybe in the past, just the fact that you have a job and a paycheck, that's enough. In the past, that would have been enough. Or giving somebody a little bit of a raise would be enough to motivate them to do better. Now, people are looking for so much more than that. They want more out of a job and more out of life, quite frankly. They want to be in a place that's going to inspire them and be invested in their development. So it's not just about salary anymore. It's about having, you know, the work-life balance is such a buzz phrase these days. And I have separate thoughts about that, but that might be another show.
Right, right.
So I think in the past, bosses were, and it can depend on what kind of bosses people have had in the past. What kind of role models have you had? Some people feel like, well, if I'm going to be you might be an expert in your field. Let's say you start a plumbing business and you are the best plumber on the planet. You provide great customer service. You know what you're doing. You're technically awesome, but you're the owner now, and now you have employees. And you may subconsciously think, well, if I'm going to be the boss, I have to be an ogre. I have to rule with a firm hand to get them to do what I want. I have to do X, Y, and Z. And that's can be so ingrained in us as people. And it's not because intentionally you want to be a jerk. It's just that subconsciously, when you think boss, you think, you know, do what I say.
Right. No, that's
And
a
so
great point.
there's no example for other ways to do it. And there's no, you know, a lot of what I do is about educating people about what it means to be an effective leader in your business, whether you're the owner or the management or wherever your role lies. It's all about thinking of new ways to do things and also new ways to inspire and motivate all these generations of people that are now in the workforce today.
That's awesome. And thank you for all that information. I have a question for you that I thought of while you were talking, and that is, you know, technology drives consumer behavior. Technology drives the workforce and employees. And I mean, we live in a very fluid technological stage in this day and age. Do you think that the advancement of technology do you think that has anything to do with helping to create like a more a happier work culture, a more fluid work culture? And what I'm getting at is that, like, you no longer have to sit in a cubicle from 9 to 5 to do, you know, like menial task work. Or let's say, let me take my experience, for example, IT work. There were a lot of things that I could do from the comfort of my own home as an IT support technician, you could remote into computers, you could fix 95% of users' problems. It really didn't matter where you were located. All that mattered was that you had the technology to be able to perform your job. Do you think do you think that helps or hinders? Where do you see technology's role in helping to create a more flexible and happy work environment?
Absolutely. Technology affects everything we do. It affects everything. It affects your customer service. It affects, how employees show up for you and the jobs that they have to do in-house versus, whether you can be a little bit more flexible. And I think that's where maybe the incongruency is coming in, because there are so many generations now. When you have the generation over here who maybe started the business XYZ number of years ago, and now you have the employee who's here who knows about all this technology and different ways of doing things.
Right.
That's where you get kind of a clash about how it should be. That technology may be uncomfortable for this business owner, and that's why they don't have those kind of options available.
Oh, no, I mean, I know it is.
You know what I mean?
I can tell you in my business and even in social media management and things like that, that's the number one thing that we run into is especially the demographic of like 50 and over small business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs that might have, 5 employees or less. They know they have to use technology. Like, again, just my experience, they know they have to be on social media and they know they have to be on Google because that's the future. But a majority of them don't know how to utilize the technology, and they also have no interest in learning how to use the technology. So honestly, that's really worked to our advantage as a business. But they just tell you straight out, listen, I'm old. I don't want to know how this works. I'm going to pay you. I need it to work. So I think you brought up a really good point. I mean, I guess that transcends everything. So I guess that mentality kind of carries over into the entire work experience.
Our brains are not wired for change. So if there is something new or different, even though intellectually we know we have to do that to kind of be competitive, like you said, they know they have to, be on Google to compete in terms of getting the word out there. But as soon as you introduce something new, and I'm guilty of it too, I just got an iPhone 11 after having a 5 for a long time, because in my brain, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
I could still make phone calls. Who cares? But obviously the 11 is so much better. And so if we can that's why I say a lot of what I do is about education. If you can kind of show them why it's better, and not just that. And we talked about this the other day, show them what's going to happen if they don't do it.
Yes.
If you don't pay attention to work culture, your business is going to suffer. Your employees are going to suffer, and your employees are going to leave.
Yeah.
And they are going to look for other jobs during your time with them. They may be doing it right now.
Yes. I mean, you're right. Technology cuts both ways, and we can go along with the theme of that, because I think it really plays a central role in what you do, but it works both ways. It cuts both ways. It's a double-edged sword. So it's like employees have options these days. Like your company isn't the only company in town anymore. And it really doesn't matter where that company is located, because I think in this day and age, you have a company can recruit the best talent in the world. The work culture, there's a fundamental shift in the way businesses operate, and there's a fundamental shift in work culture. And I think that's important for employees to know, for employers to know that as well. I think what I read that one of the most dangerous things an employer could say is, well, we've always done it that way.
Yes.
So that's a good point. I mean, everyone has options now. So it sounds like you really do have to develop a culture that really takes into account the personal lives and the needs and the wants of employees, and just not sit there and crack the whip anymore, because like you said, that shit just ain't going to work.
Right. And everything's connected. And so if you're a business owner and you have the mentality where, well, that's their personal life, that's not my business. It is your business, because they're bringing all of that to work. They're a whole person. We have families and pets and kids and, other things going on in our lives. And all of that is going to affect how your employees show up for you. So I always say, if you want to start, and this is where we can kind of start talking about what people out there can start doing to
Right. That was the next
improve
question.
their work
Yeah.
culture, because this can all be so overwhelming because there's so many things. Where do I start? If you're going to start with one thing, my suggestion is to ask, schedule it, write it in your schedule, use your phone, schedule every day, think about how many employees you have, and every day ask at least one of your employees, how can I help you to do your job better?
Okay.
That's it. If you just start with that and ask every one of your employees that, not just once, on a regular basis, because like we were saying, your business is a living, breathing thing. It's constantly changing. Employees leave. Even when you do work on work culture, your employees are going to leave. Things are going to happen. So that kind of, your team's always changing and things are always changing and your people are always changing. So if you're asking them that one question on a regular basis, I'd be surprised if you didn't immediately start to see changes in people's attitudes and how they're showing up for you and how they're producing for you.
That's awesome. And I know that from earlier when we were just talking, I want to get it down here on the show. You really like pulled the curtain back. I had like a light bulb moment that I really hadn't thought about before. And I want you to kind of talk about that now is your formula is your business, your company is a person. Can you talk to us a
Oh,
little bit
yes.
more about that? Because
Well,
that's awesome.
I had a shower moment of genius, and we all have those when they're in the shower, when we're in the
Best
shower,
work.
because there's that's the one place where there's no distractions.
Correct.
So I was in the shower and I was thinking about coming on the show today, and I thought of this great analogy. If you think of your business as a person, so we as people, we want to be happy. How do we make ourselves happy, more productive, or things we want in life, goals we want to go after? We're always seeking outside of ourselves. Maybe that means you're constantly buying stuff and maybe you're in debt, or you're constantly going to personal development things, but you're not implementing them. Or you're always looking outside, the perfect relationship, the perfect job. Everything's outside of you and nothing seems to be happening. So you're getting frustrated. That's a perfect analogy for your work culture and your business. I find that people tend to start from the opposite end. They're thinking, how can I get more customers? How can I market this better? Looking outside, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? If you turn inwards and think about your team, start from the inside, your team. You start there, and all of those other things are going to kind of organically improve. If you pay attention to your team, the inside, just like us as people, when you turn inwards and search for those answers inwards, that's when you can start to really see some changes.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think more people need to start looking at it that way. I know.
Shower Genius by Wendy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how many awesome ideas come in the shower. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you got the wheels turning. When the advantages of bringing in a work culture consultant such as yourself, do you find that? Well, I guess like, do employees tell you stuff that they normally wouldn't tell like the boss? Like, do you find?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
you hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Because a lot of times employees are sitting there and they have all these ideas, creative ideas about ways to make your business better, but they're not voicing them to you because maybe they feel like, that you haven't created a safe environment for that kind of feedback.
Okay.
Or maybe they came to you with an idea in the past, or whatever the reason may be. And maybe it's not a creative idea to improve, but maybe it's something negative about something that's going on that is causing them to feel disengaged or not to care about their job or to be unhappy. So they may not necessarily come to you with that because of fear. So part of that is yes, getting those answers in the beginning that they may not necessarily communicate to you, but also to then set up a work culture that makes it safe for them to communicate those things in the future. Because listen, my job isn't to come in and wave a magic wand and fix everything and fix everyone, and it's a one and done and you're good. You don't have to think about it for the rest of the life of your business.
Right.
That's not how it works. My job is to come in and to point out from where you are now, what's working, what's not, how can we get you to where you want to go, and things that you can do in the future to create this work culture and put you on the path to get there. So yes, them telling me things that they wouldn't tell the boss is a big part of it.
That in itself seems like it really has value. And from being an employee in the past, I could tell you that fear is absolutely real. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that fear is absolutely real. All right.
So let me talk a little bit to your audience out there who are
Sure.
maybe solopreneurs, because
Yeah.
the message behind what I'm saying doesn't just apply to people who have employees, right? It can also apply to you if you're a solopreneur, which I am. So I try to incorporate all of this stuff for myself. I try to create a work culture for myself that's going to keep me motivated to go. So kind of, if you treat yourself as your only employee and care about yourself, everybody talks about self-care, but it's really important to not only get the work done that you need to do, but also it can be kind of hard, especially if you're a solopreneur working from home. You're always at work because you live there.
It's true.
So it can be tempting I'm guilty of it myself. The computer's there, it's a Saturday. I might go in there and do 3 hours of work on a Saturday, which, maybe you're making up for lost time you lost during the week, but it's so tempting to be on 24/7. You have to kind of schedule yourself some off time to avoid burnout. So creating a work culture for yourself that includes self-care and things like investing in your personal life and your relationships and your own personal development and things like that, it applies to solopreneurs as well.
And I think that's really important, and great that you brought that up, because it seems like, if you have all these mechanics and you have this infrastructure in place when you're a solopreneur, then when you scale and when you grow,
Yes,
that's already implemented, right? And
exactly.
yeah, you just roll it out to other employees, and you just kind of scale that with your business as you grow and expand. So that's really great advice. So you should start early, day one, right? Develop.
Right. It's a great habit to start, like you said, if you're planning on scaling in the future.
That's awesome.
Start with you from day one, and it'll be easier to implement when you do get employees.
So I know that you're a big like your message is all about that, humanity and leading can coexist, and I think you've really captured that really well. I know that because we talked earlier before we started recording and stuff. I know that you watched a video about from Gary V, and he kind of got the wheels turning. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I came across this video the other day in somebody's Instagram feed, and I watched it, and it like blew my mind, because Gary Vaynerchuk is somebody who I'm aware of, obviously, and some of the things he says and his philosophies about things I agree with, and some of his things he says I don't. And so I kind of haven't really been paying attention to him recently until I saw this. And so I'm back to being a Gary Vaynerchuk fan. So he has this video, and if you want to Google it, it's called "The Biggest Misconception That Bosses Have About Employees." You can find it on his Instagram feed. You can find it on his Facebook. But he talks about, it basically says, if you don't treat your employees like you work for them, then you've got the wrong idea about what it means to be a business owner. And I love that, because that really puts a flip on what we're trained and raised and socialized to believe. And we talked a little bit before about what it means to be a boss. It really calls into question everything we're taught about what it means to be a boss. And I think part of the resistance for some people can be that if I care about my team, if I care about what makes them happy, people have such a thing about happy and work. It's like, they can't put those two words together in a sentence.
Right.
But if I care about what makes my team happy, I'm going to be seen as a weak leader. They're not going to listen to me. If I'm worried about that, why should I be worried about that? And the opposite is true. You can still care about your team and still lead them to great things. Still, have them care, have a connection to your mission of what your business is trying to do. It's not mutually exclusive. Humanity, being a good human and being a business owner or a boss can coexist.
Yeah.
So I think it can take a little bit of mind tweaking to allow that reality in. So yeah, watch that Gary Vaynerchuk snippet.
I've watched it and it reminds me of and while you were talking, I just remembered. So my story is that I was a computer network engineer for 10 years, in the industry, working my way up from a computer shop repairing computers to being a global IT network manager. And I had enough, I was like, I'm smart enough. I know the internet, there's thousands of people that are making a living on the internet and having their own businesses and stuff like that. I'm smart enough that I can do it too. And I remember when I got laid off in September of 2019, and Tia, my fiance, I think pretty much everyone knows who she is. I remember us sitting in the living room and making the decision that, okay, well, this is the universe telling us that it's time to do our own thing. And I was so proud, I was so proud that this was it. And we're stepping out and we're going to be our own boss. And I posted it on Facebook. I was like, from this moment forward, I'm running my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. And my uncle commented, congratulations. Now you work for everyone else and not yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's right. I mean, he's right. And what you say is right. Being a leader is not, I think there's huge misconceptions in business culture and in the work environment about what leadership and being the boss actually means. And I could tell you from the experience of just the 5 to 6 months that I've been doing this, I have never worked harder in my life than I do now. And like you said, it's all the time. There's no weekend. There's no Saturday. There's no Sunday. There's no, you know what I mean? Like somebody emails me at 10 o'clock at night. I'm there. I respond. Somebody and
now, Charles, you have to set boundaries.
Right. But, and I think the majority of people need to learn that. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that really spoke to me when you were talking about that. But I think the thing is in culture, people have the misconception that when you're the owner, when you're the manager, when you're the leader, that you don't work. I made it. And that's not true. It's completely opposite. You work your ass off. And
well, I read something the other day that somebody said, I wish I could remember so I could credit them here, but somebody said, people will work 80 hours a week for themselves so they don't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else.
Right.
And that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Man, that's crazy. Well, yeah, tipped my uncle. Really drove it home for me. So Wendy, for the people that saw this video and it like spoke to them and they're really interested in developing a better and more positive work culture, do you have like any resources or references that you can point people to check out?
Yes, there are a couple books that I'd love for the audience to read. If you're thinking, some things that I've said or that we've talked about of kind of maybe changing the way you're thinking about being a leader at your job, or if you own the business, there's a couple books I'd like you to check out. The first one is called The Happiness Advantage. The author's name is Shawn Achor, ShawnAchor. He has a TED Talk also that you might want to check out. It's got tons of research in there that proves everything that I've been saying, that happiness matters in the workplace. There's another book called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. His last name is Coyle. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it talks about, work culture and all of that kind of stuff. So those are some great recommendations.
Awesome. But I mean, I think we have the master and expert resource right here on the show. So for anyone that is looking to build on this and have you come in and work with you to build a positive work culture, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me everywhere. Find me on Instagram. The handle is @YourHappyWorkplace. Also on Facebook, Your Happy Workplace. I'm starting to do more Facebook Lives. Charles is the inspiration. I got to get out there. I'm also on LinkedIn. And of course, my website, YourHappyWorkplace.com, where there's an articles page where you can read about, I've written a bunch of articles there where you can get started about how to make your workplace better. And also, if you sign up for my newsletter, you will get the free downloadable guide, Find Your Person. It's a hiring and onboarding guide with 10 tips about how you can improve your hiring and onboarding process to increase your employee retention rates.
I think you have an incredible industry, like I'm to business industry, like it's so important, and it's like one of those shadow topics, because it's always on the minds of people, but yet not a lot of people speak about it openly. And it's nice to know that you've used, like, number one, you've been there, so you have that experience as well. But it's nice to know that there's someone out there that gets it and understands and is really bringing it to light. I feel like in business, this is one of those taboo topics that you really don't want to talk about, because the fear of retribution, right? The fear of getting fired, or the fear of getting, well, that's it, fired. I mean, that's really the worst that can happen. They can't take away your birthday or anything, but the fear of getting fired is real. It causes a lot of panic and anxiety in people. So it's really great that you're out there advocating for this and really bringing the topic to light. So awesome.
As we both attested to, being a business owner can be all consuming, and you're so busy trying to market and find customers, and there's a lot of things that businesses outsource, like maybe you're outsourcing your payroll, or maybe you're outsourcing your accounting. This kind of thing is something you can also outsource, and it's really something that people don't think about. Like you said, you may be aware that things are going on in your business, but you're so busy that you don't even know where to start, or maybe what to call it. Some people may have not even heard of work culture or improving it, or that's the thing. So it's really about educating business owners that, if you need help is out there.
Awesome. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. I mean, I learned a lot, and you really turned on some light bulbs in my head. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. As like you said, I love to talk about me.
Yeah. Everyone, yeah.
And I love to talk about work culture, because I'm so passionate about helping business owners and creating happy workplaces for people.
Well, that is awesome. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.
You do the same.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Bye.